Alright, this week we're doing a board game. The board game I found was Fantasy Forest from TSR. Found it at a thrift store. It's from 1980. It's a children's board game. I'm interested to see how it goes and what kind of inspiration I can get from it. See you on the other side. Players select playing pieces and locate them on the board at the start location here. 3 cards face down to each player. Place the rest of the cards face down on the board in the box marked cards. And the cards are monsters with a number value on them. Take the top card from the cards box and add it to your hand. Then you either play a card from your hand and move ahead or challenge another player. To play a card and move ahead, if you choose to move ahead, you must pick a card from your hand and place it face up to the discard box and then move your playing piece forward the number of spaces shown on the card. You may not move backwards, you may pass over other players. 5. And then so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and that's the end of player 1's turn. 2. And this player would go 1, 2. Now, let's see what we do here. Shortcuts. Spaces with colored stars in them are beginnings of shortcuts. Shortcuts let you sneak past a monster shown on the board. If you play a card whose color matches the color of the shortcut star that you start on, end on, or pass over, you may use jump across the shortcut. In order to use that, I would have to use a brown, and spiders are a 1. So I would have to do 2 moves to get there to move across. Alright, well that's not going to do it. So I can't use that shortcut. If you land on it, so we've got 2 and 2, and so I got to draw 1, got 4, if I play 2, I go 1, 2. If you land on another player's piece at the end of your turn, you can take the card in his hand and add them to your hand. Look at all 6 cards and keep any 3 of them. You must give the other player back the 3 cards you do not keep. Then your turn is over. This player would do this and take don't even know what that is. Alright, so we're going to go with these 3 are kept and these 3 are given to player 3, and that would be the end of that turn. I've now landed on a red dot, which is a ambush spot. Ambush, if you end your turn on an ambush space, one with a red dot, you are surprised by a hidden monster. Play a card from your hand face up in front of you. Turn up the top card of the cards box. If your card is the same number or higher, move your player piece ahead the number of spaces shown on your card. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Place both cards in the discard box. Take a new card. Your turn is now over, no matter where you land after you move. Okay. And move across the shortcut. So its example is if you take this, 2 spaces in front of where you are. The shortcut space has a black star in it. You have a vampire card in your hand. There's a black stripe across the bottom of the card. If you play the vampire card for your turn, you can use the shortcut and keep moving until you have moved a total of 6 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That would leave you on an ambush spot. See if that makes any difference. An ambush? Yeah, we'll give it a shot. One, two. And lay out my 3. Draw from there. Uh-oh. Okay, so ambush spot. If the other card is higher than your card, you must go back the number of spaces shown on the other card. 1, 2, 3, 4. Both go into discard. Take a new card. That did me no good. Next player is going to do something else here. Challenge another player. Instead of playing a card and moving ahead, you may challenge another player. If you win the challenge, you move your piece into the space ahead of the other player and your turn ends immediately. To challenge another player, choose a card from your hand and lay it face down in front of you. Then pick the player you want to challenge. Say, I challenge you. The other player picks a card from their hand and lays it face up in front of him. Then you turn over your card. So, this is player 3 challenging player 4, who has stolen from his hand several times. So, player 4 chooses to lay a vampire up. And if your card is the same number or higher, you win the challenge. Put both cards in the discard box. The other player draws a new card from the card box. If your card is the same value or higher. If the card you play is lower, you use the challenge. Put both cards in the discard box. The other player draws a new card from the card box. You do not move ahead, you stay in the same space. So, other player gets a new card. It still hurt them a little. Nobody moves ahead. The first player to reach Morley's castle wins the game. The game ends as soon as one player enters Morley's castle. You may play a higher card than you need to enter the castle. Alright, so having played the game and taken a look at the internals, I would say I do kind of like some of the aspects. I think the thing I like best about this is it's diceless. There's no rolling to get a set value. The number of moves you make is a conscious decision based on what you have in your hand. It's strategy as much as luck. I mean, yeah, you do have some limits on what you have in your hand based on your draw, but I like the idea that you can choose whether or not you're going to be faced with a certain fate when you make your move. So instead of just, oh, I've got a 6, I've got to land on this spot and it'll do this to me, you can decide whether or not it's in your interest to do that at this time. And I think that it works well with some of the aspects of the game where when you're playing, it may not always seem like the best choice to do something. There are a couple times when I was looking at some of the moves you could make where it's like you could choose to land on an ambush spot and you can come out better for having played that ambush spot, but you could also come out worse. And so the choice of whether or not you want to land on that, there may be times where it's something you actually want to do and it'll improve your situation. Likewise, there's the possibility of challenging one of the other players to a one-on-one card trade, and there are consequences to success and failure on those. That being said, it comes from a time frame in board games, I think, where the idea of a cooperative game really didn't exist. So the idea of only one person can learn the spells from the wizard when you complete the game, so you're competing with everybody else for the right to be that one person. I think it's a forced narrative, random encounters when you encounter a encounter button or one of the dots on one of the landing spaces being randomly drawn from the deck rather than this is what lives at this station. There's a part of me wants to include a feature where this is what's at this station and this is the item it's using, so that when you defeat it you can get the item and you can use the item yourself at another location. I think that would be a fun addition to the game. So it's sort of like a collection as you're going through the game. And if you do something like a cooperative game, the ability for different players to collect different items that would help in a final conflict at the center. And there's a part of me that looks at it and sees the path and the shortcuts are a neat trick. It seems kind of uneventful when you go through the shortcuts. I think there should be going through a shortcut. There could be a feature where there's like a fate deck where you turn over and some special event happens in the passage through a shortcut, so that a shortcut isn't always the right choice. Something bad could happen, something really helpful could happen, and you have to decide whether that's a risk you want to take. And maybe have higher end shortcuts have a higher number of fate pulls, so you pull out an extra couple cards higher up in the challenge of a shortcut, or even have an early shortcut that's 2 cards instead of 1, but the risk of a positive is higher than a negative. I think you could do some fun things with some of those features. That being said, I mean, the game itself is good as it is. I'm thinking if you were to make a game based on this, as a kid's game, it's pretty good. I think you could make a decent adults game off of something like this. By the time you do all the adjustments I think you could possibly do with this, it would be a completely different game. So, I mean, take the game for what it is. I would say definitely it's fun to play with adults as much as kids. It's actually got some good mechanics on it that I think could lend themselves to other game design prospects. There's a part of me thinking it would be interesting to see if you could play it with something like a Magic the Gathering deck, where the point values on the cards you have are point values you're playing against the monster values. I don't know how well that would go for some of it, but I do think some aspect of that, where there's a bit of a story element on the cards, and the art, and the sort of play against play aspect of Magic cards, rather than just a number versus another number, and whoever's got the highest number wins. I think there's an aspect of one type of card can beat another type of card, even if the point value is a little off or has special defenses against them. You could up the game seriously with something like that. I do like that some of the shortcuts are vastly bigger shortcuts, and some are just short little jumps. But I also think there's got to be a way to maybe do modular tiles, so that you can change up the landscape in a bigger sense. Each game being different because the layout is different. But there's some definite potential in this game, and I think it's, I would probably rate this a 6 out of 7.8. So that's a decent game.